In a small town nestled alongside the roaring river, there lived a river guide named Jake. He was known far and wide for his impressive skills and deep love for the wild waters. From a young age, Jake spent his summers navigating the twisting currents and hidden bends of the river. He could read the flow of the water like a book, knowing where the rapids would surge and where calm pools awaited. Jake's father had been a river guide too, passing down secrets about the river and the importance of respecting its power. With each passing year, Jake honed his skills, gaining a reputation for being able to handle even the most challenging conditions. Locals often marveled at how he could steer his boat through treacherous sections with ease, guiding tourists safely downriver while sharing tales of adventure and caution. What set Jake apart wasn't just his talent but also his passion. He believed that rivers were not just bodies of water but living entities with stories to tell. Every twist and turn held memories waiting to be unveiled. On sunny days, you could find him teaching kids how to fish or leading groups on thrilling rafting trips, always encouraging others to appreciate the beauty of nature. As the sun rose one morning, casting golden hues over the river's surface, little did Jake know that today would bring a challenge unlike any he had faced before. A bandit in need of salvation would soon enter his life, causing ripples that would change everything. As Jake readied his boat for another adventure, miles away, a man named Eli stood at the edge of the same river, lost in thought. Once known as the baptized bandit, Eli had spent years on the wrong side of the law, committing thefts that had earned him a notorious reputation. His life revolved around the thrill of crime and the chaos it brought. But everything changed one stormy night when he encountered a humble preacher. The preacher spoke of forgiveness and redemption, sharing stories that struck a chord deep within Eli's heart. After a long conversation filled with tears and hope, Eli made a decision. He wanted to turn his life around. He was baptized that very night under the pouring rain, symbolizing his commitment to leave his criminal ways behind. It was a profound moment that filled him with newfound purpose. With determination in his heart, Eli set out to make amends for his past. However, old habits die hard. As he walked along the riverbank that fateful morning, he felt the pull of his former life creeping back in. Anxiety mingled with hope as he battled with himself. Could he really change? The rushing water nearby mirrored his turbulent thoughts. Now seeking a fresh start, Eli knew he needed to make things right. But he also understood that danger lurked around every corner of his old life. Little did he know that fate would soon entwine his story with Jake's at the very same river where all would be tested once more. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, warming the river's surface, as Jake paddled through the familiar twists and turns of the water. Suddenly, a loud splash broke through the tranquil sounds of nature. Jake's heart raced as he turned to see a figure struggling against the relentless pull of the rapids. It was Eli. Without a moment's hesitation, Jake's instincts kicked in. He quickly steered his boat toward the chaos, every muscle in his body focused on the task at hand. The water was furious around Eli, churning and frothing like a wild beast. Jake could see desperation etched on Eli's face as he fought against the current, his arms flailing and fear flashing in his eyes. "Hold on!" Jake shouted over the roar of the river. Paddling fiercely, he maneuvered his boat closer to Eli, keeping his eyes locked on the bandit's frantic movements. With each passing moment, the rapids seemed to grow more powerful, threatening to swallow him whole. The urgency of the situation surged within Jake like a tidal wave. Finally within reach, Jake extended his hand toward Eli, who grasped it tightly as hope replaced panic. "I've got you," Jake yelled, pulling with all his strength. The current resisted as they battled to break free from its grip. Together they fought, the river's power meeting their determination, until at last they burst into calmer waters. Panting and soaked but alive, they flopped into the boat together, but neither man understood that this moment would spark more than just survival. It would intertwine their fates in ways they could never expect. As the boat surged forward, Jake focused entirely on Eli's desperate struggle in the water. The rapids were merciless, thrashing around them like a wild animal. With each powerful surge, Jake felt the weight of urgency pressing down on him. He knew that time was running out. "Just grab my hand," he shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the roar of the river. Eli, eyes wide with fear and determination, reached out as Jake maneuvered the boat closer. The water was thick with swirling foam, making it difficult to stay steady. Every instinct told Jake to push harder to get Eli to safety. With sheer bravery, Jake leaned over the edge of his boat, feeling the spray of the water against his face. He could see Eli's struggle intensifying as the current pulled him further away. "You can do it. Just hold on," Jake encouraged, his heart pounding in rhythm with the rushing water. As Eli grasped Jake's hand tightly, a surge of adrenaline coursed through both men. The river fought against them, but together they fought back. Jake anchored himself with his legs and pulled with all his might, feeling Eli's strength start to waver. With a final heave, they broke free from the furious grip of the rapids. Panting heavily, they tumbled into the boat together, gasping for air and soaking wet but alive. In that moment of shared triumph and relief, an unspoken bond formed between them, a connection that would shape their futures in ways they could not yet imagine. As Jake and Eli caught their breath, laughter mingling with relief, an ominous presence began to loom nearby. Emerging from the tree line, a group of men approached, their faces set in grim determination. These were the preacher's posse, a band of townsfolk who had heard rumors of Eli's return and sought retribution for the pain he had caused in the past. The leader of the posse, a tall man with stern features named Caleb, stepped forward. His eyes narrowed as he locked onto Eli, his voice low but fierce. "We know what you've done, Eli. You can't just wash your hands clean and expect the past to forget you." The tension hung heavy in the air as members of the posse gripped their weapons tightly. Eli's heart sank at the sight of them. He knew all too well the anger that lingered from his days as a bandit. "I'm not that man anymore," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. But Caleb was relentless, fueled by the hurt Eli had inflicted on those around him. Jake stood protectively beside Eli, feeling the weight of their shared experience pressing down on him. "He saved himself from drowning today," Jake shouted back at the posse. "Everyone deserves a second chance." But Caleb and his gang remained unmoved, their intentions clear. They wanted justice for their wounds, and they believed it was time to hold Eli accountable for his choices. As anger collided with compassion, an inevitable confrontation loomed on the horizon. A battle not just between men but between redemption and revenge. The air crackled with tension as Caleb and the preacher's posse faced Jake and Eli on the riverbank, the sun casting long shadows that seemed to amplify the unease. Caleb's voice was steady but filled with anger as he addressed Eli. "You think a little baptism can erase all the hurt you've caused? People are still suffering because of you." Jake stepped forward, feeling a surge of protectiveness for Eli. "He's trying to change. We all deserve a chance to make things right." His voice was firm, but uncertainty lingered in the air as he glanced at Eli, who stood silently, grappling with his past. Eli's heart raced. He wanted to argue but felt the weight of his former life pressing down on him. "I know I messed up," he finally said, his voice trembling. "But I'm not that person anymore. I want to help, not hurt." Caleb shook his head, his eyes blazing with conviction. "How can we trust you? You turned your back on us once. What's to stop you from doing it again?" The other members of the posse murmured their agreement, their postures tense and ready for conflict. The river behind them flowed relentlessly, a reminder of both the past and the possibility of renewal. "Redemption isn't just a word," Jake insisted passionately. "It's a journey we all must take." But as Caleb raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge passed between them. The battle lines were drawn, not just for Eli's fate, but for what justice truly meant in this moment where compassion clashed with the desire for revenge. Jake could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, a mix of urgency and conviction coursing through his veins. "Listen," he said, locking eyes with Caleb. "Eli's not the same man you remember. He was drowning today, both literally and figuratively. I pulled him back from the brink." Caleb's expression remained hard, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "What about all the pain he caused? How can we trust him after everything?" Jake stepped closer, the river flowing steadily behind him, its relentless power reminding them of life's unpredictability. You're right. Eli has a dark past, but we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward. He gestured toward Eli, who stood silently beside him, vulnerability etched across his face. He saved his own life today, and maybe even more than that. He wants to help others now. The posse exchanged glances, some showing signs of wavering doubt while others remained steadfast in their anger. Redemption isn't just a word, Jake continued, his voice rising with passion. It's a chance to start anew. If we don't give people like Eli an opportunity to change, then what does that say about us? Eli felt a surge of gratitude towards Jake at that moment, realizing how far he had come from the lonely bandit he once was. The crowd's tension began to shift slightly as they considered Jake's plea for mercy over retribution. The balance between justice and compassion hung delicately in the air, waiting for one decision to tip the scales either way. As the standoff continued, the river flowed steadily behind them, a metaphorical reminder of life's complexities. Jake could see the conflict in Caleb's eyes, fury mixed with a sense of loss that no one could fully understand. This wasn't just about Eli. It was about pain, betrayal, and the scars left in the wake of choices made in desperation. Eli stood quietly, his heart pounding as he reflected on his past. Memories of nights spent plotting crimes and running from justice flashed before him. "I can't change what I did," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can work to make things better. I want to help those I've hurt." As he spoke, he felt the weight of guilt settle heavy on his chest. "Forgiveness isn't easy," Caleb replied, his voice softening slightly. "You took away our peace. How do we know you won't take again?" Jake stepped closer, sensing the shift in the air. "That's exactly why we must choose to forgive," he urged. "Holding on to anger will only keep us trapped in our pasts. Eli saved himself today, and he saved me too. Isn't that worth something?" The squad's stance wavered, and Eli realized their hesitation was a test of character for everyone involved. Would they cling to bitterness, or could they find the strength to embrace empathy? It was a pivotal moment where forgiveness hung like a delicate thread, and each person's decision could reshape not just their lives, but the future of their community as well. As the tension hung thick in the air, Caleb took a deep breath, his hardened expression softening ever so slightly. "You're asking us to trust him," he said slowly, glancing at the other members of the posse. "But how do we know that his desire to change is real? How do we know he won't go back to his old ways?" Jake stepped forward, sensing an opportunity for dialogue. "Trust is built over time," he replied earnestly. "Eli saved my life today and faced his fears. If he can confront his past, then perhaps we can give him a chance to prove himself." Eli nodded, his heart racing as he saw a flicker of hope in the posse's eyes. "I understand your anger," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't expect forgiveness right away, but I promise to work hard to make amends. Let me show you that I can help this community instead of hurting it." Caleb exchanged glances with his companions, their expressions shifting from anger to contemplation. Finally, he spoke again, this time with a hint of compromise. "What if we set up community service for Eli? If he truly wishes to change, he can start by helping those he's harmed." The posse murmured amongst themselves, weighing the idea. Jake felt a rush of relief wash over him as he realized they might be reaching an understanding. "That sounds fair," Jake added. "It's a chance for Eli to prove himself, and for all of us to heal." With that agreement hanging in the air, the hostility began to dissipate, replaced by cautious hope as the river continued to flow nearby, a symbol of transformation and new beginnings for everyone involved. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the river, Jake reflected on the day's events. The rescue of Eli had not only saved a life, but had sparked an unexpected chain of events that reshaped their community. It was a powerful reminder that one act of kindness could ripple through lives, creating waves of change. Eli stood alongside Jake, watching as Caleb and the posse began to relax, their hearts slowly opening to the possibility of forgiveness. He felt a mix of gratitude and resolve. This was his chance to show that he could change and help others heal. "Thank you for believing in me," he whispered to Jake, who nodded with a smile. The river continued its steady flow, symbolizing the journeys they all faced. Some paths were tangled in darkness, while others glimmered with hope. "We're all just trying to navigate our own rapids," Jake said thoughtfully. "Sometimes we stumble, but it's how we rise after that matters most." As Eli prepared to face his new responsibilities within the community, he recognized that redemption was not just about absolution but about actively working to make amends. The road ahead would be challenging, but with support from those around him, including Jake and even Caleb, he felt invigorated by purpose. In this moment of unity, both men understood that true strength lay in compassion and second chances. As they walked along the riverbank together, the future seemed bright, a testament to the idea that saving someone can spark an enduring change for many.